we don't have a both and religion. We have an either or religion. As one author points out, Genesis 1:1, the very first verse in the Bible, already is taking a swipe at the rampant polytheistic worldviews of the day to say, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, we're so familiar with that, many of us. It doesn't strike us as, what's unusual about that? It was completely unusual because the ancients had lots of stories about how the universe came into being, and it always involved two gods fighting, or a god and a goddess coming together and procreating, or one god slaying another god, and then out of its carcass, this earth came. It always involved some multiplicity of deities fighting or coming together. But Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God. One God, the only God, the real God. So as one author puts it, monotheism is not just the first command, it's the Bible's first thought. And the first commandment then establishes biblical faith as an either or, not a both and proposition. And so over and over, when you have the renewal of the covenant at the end of Joshua chapter 24, Joshua says, put away the gods that you worshipped on the other side of the river. Or Elijah on Mount Carmel, if Baal is God, worship him. But if he's not, then worship the Lord your God. Or even in Ezekiel, it talks about the gods that the Israelites worshipped when they were in Egypt. They had already fallen prey to this syncretism. Jesus himself, of course, says, you cannot serve two masters. You'll love the one and hate the other. True biblical faith is an either or proposition. And the fault of the Israelites throughout the Old Testament is not that they didn't want anything to do with Yahweh. They're quite happy to have Yahweh and Baal, or Yahweh and Asherah, or Yahweh and Dagon. This is probably the fault for many of us. Quite happy to have a little bit of God in our life. Most of you wouldn't be at church if you weren't interested somewhat in something about God. Maybe happy to have a little Jesus in your life. Just like, when you play Trivial Pursuit, and Trivial Pursuit's great. We should all play Trivial Pursuit. And if you ever have that obnoxious friend who wants to play Trivial Pursuit with you, I will be that obnoxious friend. But, and you have the pie pieces, and you put the little things as you get the different categories. A lot of us think of God or faith that way. We have our, sports is a little piece of the pie, and family is a piece of the pie, and, our job, or watching football, or, food. And then, we're happy. We'll give one of those pieces. I'd like a Jesus piece. I'd like to put that right in there. I'd like a God piece to go in there. So we're quite happy. God and Jesus and. Yeah, it just helps a well-rounded life. It may not be as obvious as it was when the Israelites were bowing down to poles and statues, but it's the same impulse. The other 9 commandments speak of acts you should or should not do. But the first commandment is unique in that it mandates a certain kind of relationship. Have you ever noticed that? All the others are do this, don't do that. But the first commandment establishes a certain relationship with God. Namely, he's the only God.